Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the pre-application conference call for the fiscal year 2017 Legal Assistance for Victims Grant Program, also referred to as the LAV program. The Office on Violence Against Women, also referred to as OVW, is convening this pre-application conference call to go over the solicitation for the LAV program. I am Regina Madison, and with me are
Shannon Gaskins,
Jan Cherie Morris,
and Lauren Nasikas.
And Shannon, Jan Cherie, and myself work on the LAV unit, and Lauren is the supervisor of the LAV unit. The purpose of this call is to provide information regarding the LAV solicitation. We will cover highlights of the solicitation in today's call. However, it is not the intent, nor is there sufficient time to go over every aspect of the solicitation. All applicants are responsible for reading the solicitation and reviewing the contents of all application materials and ensuring that a complete application is submitted. LAV program staff cannot provide any feedback to applicants about the quality of an applicant's proposal or provide any information outside of that presented in the solicitation. LAV program staff will be available throughout the period that the solicitation is open to respond to any questions about the solicitation requirements. Please feel free to send any questions that you have about the solicitation to the LAV program email box at ovw.lav@usdoj.gov. And if you received an email from me, there was an attachment that listed the states that each of us manage on the unit, as well as the LAV mailbox, as well as the OVW, the main telephone line for the Office on Violence Against Women. Now, if you have the solicitation in front of you today, today's call will follow the order of topics as listed in the solicitation. Now, the version of the solicitation that I am using, I printed directly from OVW's website, and the version that I forwarded to you all who registered is the same version. So I'm just going by what came from the OVW's website. Eligibility. First thing is eligibility. Eligibility is mentioned on the cover of the solicitation, as well as on pages 5 through 6. Eligible applicants are private nonprofit entities, public funded organizations not acting in a governmental capacity, such as law schools, territorial organizations, Indian tribal governments, tribal organizations, and Indian tribal consortia. Both new and continuation applicants are being accepted. Grantees that received LAV funding for 36 months in fiscal years 2015 and 2016 are not eligible to apply. Deadlines. Also on the cover of the solicitation, please note that the applications are due by 11:59 Eastern Time on Thursday, February 16, 2017. Registration. You will also note on the cover that you must register by Thursday, January 26th, or tomorrow. Okay. Registration includes several steps. First, obtaining a DUNS number. Second, ensuring that you register with the SAM system and registering on grants.gov. Every applicant must obtain a Data Universal Number System, or DUNS, number and register online with System for Award Management, or SAM, well before the grant deadline. There is a reason that we set a deadline of January 26th, as the process to register for a DUNS number and for SAM can be long. If you do not have a DUNS number and or are not current in the SAM system, you should begin this process as soon as possible. Register with grants.gov no later than January 26th, again, tomorrow. The registration process is not one that can be completed quickly. It can take days, and you should begin this process as soon as possible. Every year we have a handful of applicants that didn't make the deadline because they were delinquent with their SAM and or grants.gov registrations. If you are considering applying, a letter of registration should be submitted to OVW by January 26th. A letter of registration is not mandatory. However, They are very helpful to us internally in attempting to identify the potential volume of applications that are expected to be received and to plan accordingly for the peer review process. Refer to Appendix B for a sample letter of registration in the solicitation. Contact information. If you have any questions regarding the LAB solicitation, contact OVW at 202-307-6026. This is our main number at OVW. You will be directed to either Shannon Gaskins, Jan Cherie Morris, or myself, Regina Madison, depending on the state in which you are calling from. You may also send an email to ovw.lab@usdoj.gov. Submission and notification information. LAB applications will be submitted through grants.gov this year. If you have questions specific to the registration or submission process through grants.gov, please contact grants.gov customer support at 1-800-518-4726. This phone number can also be found on page II of the LAB solicitation and on the grants.gov website. Grants.gov customer service is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with the exception of federal holidays. OVW anticipates notifying all applicants of funding decisions by October 1, 2017. Section A, the program description. Sorry, let me get there myself. Page 1 of the solicitation provides background on the history and goals for the LAB program. The purpose of the LAB program is to increase the availability of civil and criminal legal assistance needed to effectively aid adult and youth victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking who are seeking relief in legal matters relating to or arising out of that abuse or violence, at a minimum or no cost to the victims. The LAB program supports holistic and comprehensive legal services, which involves treating the client as a whole person with access to a range of services beyond legal representation, such as counseling, support groups, shelter, housing assistance, and a wide range of legal services to meet victims' needs, such as filing protection orders, representation, housing, and family court. LAB grant program funds may not be used to provide criminal defense services. Next section is program scope. The fiscal year 2017 LAB grant program has 3 purpose areas. You will find this information on page 2 of the solicitation. I won't read the purpose areas verbatim, but however, in a nutshell, all projects funded through the LAB program must fall under one or more of these purpose areas that are located on page 2. Now, I do want to discuss purpose area number 3 in a little bit more detail, because part of that purpose area talks about not more than 10% of funds awarded may be used for the purpose of providing pro bono legal assistance. And this requirement applies to the entire amount of LAB funding, of the amount of our appropriation. It doesn't factor into your individual grant application. So you are not, your application can come in to do more than 10% pro bono legal services. This is just, it really doesn't apply to you directly, but we keep track of that. So if that's not clear, please ask questions about that. The next section is OVW priority areas. Information regarding the 1 priority area under the LAB program for this year can also be found on page 2. Applications proposing activities in the following priority area will be given special consideration during the review process. Sexual assault-focused applications. Since the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act in 2000, the LAB program has included a statutory mandate that not less than 25% of available LAB funding must support projects that serve victims of sexual assault. The LAB program will prioritize projects that meaningfully address and focus primarily, we mean at least 80%, on serving victims of non-intimate partner sexual assault. Applicants submitting proposals under this priority may request up to $800,000 in funding for 36 months. The next couple of sections, activities that compromise victim safety and recovery, out-of-scope activities, and unallowable activities. You will find this information beginning on page 3. Applicants, including items listed in these sections, may be removed from consideration or may receive a point deduction during the review process. We're not going to spend time reviewing these sections. However, we strongly recommend that you read through these sections carefully and contact us directly if you have any questions. Now I'm going on to Section B, which is Federal Award Information. Availability of funds. All awards are subject to the availability of appropriated funding and any modifications or additional requirements that may be imposed by law. There is no guarantee that funds will be available in the future. Therefore, OVW encourages applicants to develop a plan to sustain project activities if federal funding through this program ceases to be available. Award period. The grant award period is for 36 months beginning on October 1, 2017. Award amounts. Funding levels for 2017 are as follows. New and continuation applicants that are proposing to provide primarily domestic violence-focused legal services may request up to $600,000 for 36 months. New and continuation applicants proposing to provide at least 80% non-intimate partner sexual assault-focused legal services may request up to $800,000 for 36 months. OVW has the discretion to award grants for greater or lesser amounts than requested and to negotiate the scope of work and budget with applicants prior to award of a grant. The LAV grant program typically makes awards in the range of $400,000 to $800,000. However, you can submit a proposal for less than $400,000 if you choose to. And OVW estimates that it will make up to 60 awards this year. The next section is Section C on eligibility information. And the list of eligible applicants is listed on page 5 of the solicitation. Applications that are submitted by ineligible entities or that do not meet our program eligibility requirements will not be considered for funding. In the solicitation, and just one thing that we do want to clarify, in the solicitation it states that, quote, family justice centers are not considered domestic violence and or sexual assault victim service providers under the LAV program. Okay, yes, it's under the LAV program. But however, we wanted to clarify that a government-led family justice center is not a victim service provider under the LAV grant program. A family justice center led by a community-based agency may be a victim service provider under the LAV grant program if it is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization that assists or advocates for domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking victims, with a documented history of effective work concerning domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. Mere co-location of services provided by other organizations does not qualify without direct victim services provided by the organization itself. Victim service providers that are partners in government-led family justice centers or community-based agency-led family justice centers are also eligible to apply as partners under the LAV grant program if they meet all other requirements of the solicitation. Nonprofit lead family justice centers that do not meet the definition of victim service provider are eligible to apply, but will need to partner with a victim service provider. This clarifying statement that I just read has also been added to the OVW website. If you need further clarification or have more questions, please feel free to email us or give us a call. The next section is other program eligibility requirements. Okay, delivery of legal assistance. Applicants proposing to provide legal assistance with LAV funding must certify in writing to the criteria listed on starting on page 8 and 9. Okay. This certification should take the form of a letter on letterhead signed and dated by the authorizing official. The signed certification letter must be uploaded as a separate attachment in grants.gov. A sample certification letter can be found in Appendix F. And just one thing about the certification letter, try not to make changes. That is statutory language, so pretty much it has to say the same language. Some people do creative and they take words out, they move words around. Please don't do that. Just look at the letter, the sample letter, and just so pretty much take that and use that and just sort of cut and paste it and send it in. You don't need to add anything else to it. The next section. Require partnership with domestic violence and or sexual assault victim service provider. All lead applicants that are not domestic violence and or sexual assault victim service providers are required to enter into a collaborative working relationship with sexual assault and or domestic violence victim service providers within the community to be served. A complete overview of the criteria used to determine a domestic violence and or sexual assault victim service provider can be found on page 7. Additionally, the sexual assault and or domestic violence victim service provider must be involved in the development and implementation of the project. If the lead applicant is an organization with a primary mission to provide services to victims of crime generally, a community action agency, a community-based improvement corporation, a law school, or a legal services program, that organization must partner with a domestic violence or sexual assault program. And if you have questions about that, again, please feel free to contact us. An applicant without the required partnership may be removed from further consideration. Limit on number of application submissions. An applicant can only submit one application per organization in response to this solicitation. If an applicant submits multiple versions of the same application, OVW will review only the most recent version submitted before the deadline. Okay, next, Section D, application and submission information. That's on page 8 of the solicitation. Address to request application packet. The complete application package is available on grants.gov or at the OVW website. Applicants wishing to request a paper copy of the application material should email their request to the OVW mailbox or to one of the LAV program specialists. Application contents. The required documentation for a complete application package begins on page 9 of the solicitation. Applicants should anticipate that failure to submit an application that contains all of the specified elements will negatively affect the review of the application and may result in the application not being considered for funding. It is the responsibility of the applicant to ensure that a complete application is submitted by the deadline. OVW will not contact applicants for any missing items. Now, applicants should not submit documents that were not asked for in the solicitation. Providing information that was not asked for, such as letters of support from other organizations in your community or service area, will not increase the likelihood that your application will be selected for funding. So please only submit what we ask for in the solicitation, please. Thanks. Formatting and technical requirements. Applications must follow the formatting and technical requirements on page 9. Points may be deducted for applications that do not adhere to the formatting and technical requirements. Please read the entire list of requirements, but some key requirements include: make sure that your project narrative is double-spaced, the project abstract and summary data sheet, and the charts that you may have to submit. They can be single-spaced or double-spaced, is fine, but the project narrative must be double-spaced. Type no smaller than 12-point Times New Roman font. Please include page numbers. Your project narrative should be no more than 20 pages, and the summary data sheet does not count toward the 20-page limit for the project narrative. And please include headings and subheadings that correspond to the sections identified in the solicitation. We will have peer reviewers reviewing your application, and, they will have quite a few to look at, so you really don't want them frustrated or very, not in a happy space when they're reviewing your application. So please follow these technical and formatting, these items for formatting, because that will be very helpful to the peer reviewers, and it'll probably make them warm and fuzzy as they read your application. Okay. Application requirements. Applications must include the following required documents and demonstrate that the program eligibility requirements have been met. Okay, you must submit a project narrative, must submit a budget detail worksheet and budget narrative. You must submit a memorandum of understanding, or a MOU, or a statement of expertise in providing legal representation for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and or dating violence. For those who have applied in the past, the statement of expertise replaces the internal MOU or memorandum of understanding that has been required in previous years. In addition to the application being scored on these documents, the summary data sheet will also be scored. The summary data sheet may be single or double spaced. Applications that do not include all of the required components will be considered substantially incomplete and will not be considered for funding. Proposal abstract. Your application should include an abstract that does not exceed 2 pages double spaced. And the abstract can be single spaced too, but cannot exceed 2 pages double spaced. Project narrative, as I said before, cannot exceed 20 pages, and it must include the following sections: purpose of the application, what will be done, and who will implement. And you can find what we require in each of those sections in the solicitation starting on page 10. The budget. A budget and budget narrative are required. Now, regarding the budget, some people do the budget and they do a separate budget narrative. That is absolutely okay. Some people do a budget and budget narrative combined into one document. That is absolutely okay. It's just you need to have narrative in your budget explaining what the line items are. Your budget must reflect 36 months of project activity. It must include funds to attend OVW-sponsored training and technical assistance in the amount of $6,000 minimum for new applicants. For new and continuation applicants, and $10,000 minimum for applicants from the U.S. territories, Alaska, or Hawaii. Applicants may include more than the minimum amount. Feel free, that's fine. And refer to Appendix A for budget guidance and a sample budget. Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, or Statement of Expertise. This section can be found on page 15 of the solicitation. Some key highlights of the MOU. The MOU is a document containing the terms of the partnership and the roles and responsibilities between 2 or more parties. Applications from nonprofit, non-governmental, or tribal victim service providers or governmental rape crisis centers that, as their primary mission, provide services to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and or stalking victims who partner with an organization that has expertise in providing legal services must submit an MOU. That includes the legal services organization and any other organizations that the applicant is partnering with to implement the project. Applications from lead applicants who are legal services, law schools, organizations that provide services to victims of crime in general, community action agencies, and community-based improvement corporations must partner with at least one external domestic violence and or sexual assault program and must submit an MOU. Now, that was for the MOU. Now, some of the key highlights for the Statement of Expertise. Applications from lead applicants that are nonprofit, non-governmental, or tribal victim service providers or governmental rape crisis centers that, as their primary mission, provide services to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and or stalking victims, may submit a statement of expertise if they demonstrate that they provide legal representation for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault. Now, if the nonprofit, non-governmental, or tribal victim service providers or governmental rape crisis center offenders has expertise in providing legal services, an MOU is not required. I'm sorry, let me say it again. If the nonprofit, non-governmental, or tribal victim service providers or governmental rape crisis centers have expertise in providing legal services, an MOU is not required. In lieu of the MOU, the applicant must submit a statement describing its experience providing legal representation if legal service will be provided by in-house attorneys. This statement should be provided on agency letterhead and signed and dated by the authorized rep. Electronic or typed signatures do not satisfy the signature requirement. Now, if you are a victim service provider who will be contracting with individual attorneys and not a legal services, then you can submit a statement of expertise, not an MOU. But you should demonstrate in the statement of expertise the experience of the attorneys that will be providing legal services. Statutory requirements, the certification letter. This is the same certification that we discussed earlier on pages 8 to 9 of the solicitation. Again, the certification letter must be on agency letterhead and signed, and there's a sample certification letter at Appendix F. Additional required information. All right, that begins on page 17. Now, these additional documents listed on page 17 will not be scored during the review process, but they should be included with your application. Failure to include any of the information may result in your application being removed from consideration from funding. Excuse me. Number one, the first one is disclosure of process related to executive compensation. This only applies to applicants that are nonprofit organizations using the IRS's three-step safe harbor procedure for establishing executive compensation. Now, this is not required. It's not required that you use the IRS procedure. It's not required at all. But if you do use it, then you have to do this additional step and go to Appendix C for a sample cover letter for this particular step. Number two, confidentiality notice form. There is a link on page 18 that you can go to access this form, and you have to complete and upload this form as a separate attachment in grants.gov with your application. The SF-424 application for federal assistance. Applicants must complete the SF-424 online. It is completed online. For the type of applicant, please do not select other. Please pay careful attention to the amount of federal funding requested in the estimated funding section on this form. This amount must match the amount of federal funding requested in the budget section of the application package. So in other words, whatever amount your budget is, then that's the amount you should put in estimated funding and nothing else, no match or anything else. And only include values for applicant if the program solicitation requires a match. A match is not required for the LAD program, so you can just leave any match out. The individual who is listed as the authorized rep must be an individual who has the authority to apply for and accept grant awards on behalf of the organization or jurisdiction. Number four, standard assurances and certifications regarding lobbying, debarment, suspension, and other responsibility matters and drug-free workplace requirements. Again, applicants will receive a request to compile these forms online. They will be online during the application submission process in grants.gov. All applicants must complete the disclosure of lobbying activities. It's Form SF-LLL. And applicants that expend any funds for lobbying activities must provide the detailed information requested on the form. However, the vast majority of people, this form does not apply to you. So if that's the case, you still have to complete it, but just put NA in all the required highlighted fields. So just put NA in. Letter of non-supplanting, number 5. There is a link to a sample letter of non-supplanting, which is located on page 28. no, I'm sorry, please disregard. I don't know where they came from, but anyway, there is a link to a sample letter when you go into the solicitation. I think it's starting on page 18. I'm sorry, on page 18 is the sample. It's a link for the letter of non-supplanting. Financial accounting practices. Each applicant must provide responses to the questions listed on page 19, so everyone must complete the financial accounting practices. Applicant financial capability questionnaire. This is if applicable. This form is required for any nonprofit, non-governmental organization that has never received OVW funding or has not received any OVW funding within the last 3 years. If you have received funding from any other OVW program, not just LAB, any OVW program within the last 3 years, this form is not required. And finally, indirect cost rate agreement, if applicable. This is you should only submit this if you intend to charge indirect costs to your proposed LAB grant. Submission dates and times. Applications are due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, February 16th. Applicants are strongly encouraged to begin the application submission process at least 48 hours, but no later than 24 hours before February 16th. Applicants must obtain a DUNS number, register online with the SAM system and grants.gov, and submit an optional letter of registration no later than January 26th, tomorrow. Again, you can refer to Appendix B for a sample letter of registration. OVW policy on duplicate applications. As I stated earlier, an applicant should submit one application for the same project per program. If an applicant submits multiple versions of an application, OVW will review the most recent version submitted. OVW policy on late submissions. That is on page 22 of the solicitation. OVW offers several options for an applicant to provide advance notice to OVW if receipt of his application will be delayed. Again, applicants should refer to the chart on page 22 for the various scenarios. Applicants should thoroughly familiarize themselves with the requirements as outlined by OVW in the chart on page 22. An applicant's request to submit an application after the deadline will be considered by OVW if all of the steps are followed on page 22. Only in rare circumstances are extensions granted. Failure to begin the registration or application submission process in sufficient time is not an acceptable reason for a late application submission. Funding restrictions. Food and beverage costs for refreshments and meals. Generally, food and beverage costs are not allowable, and under no circumstances may OVW funding be used to supply food and or beverages during refreshment breaks. OVW may approve the use of OVW funds to provide food and or beverages for a meal at a meeting, conference, training, or other event if one of the following criteria listed on page 24 of the solicitation applies. Justification for an exception listed on page 24 must be included in your budget and budget narrative, and funds may only be used to purchase food and or beverages for a meal at a meeting, conference, training, or other event if OVW approves the specific expenditures in advance. Just for the for the LAB program, generally, this is a no. We don't allow it at all. So, but if you have a strong justification, we can see if we can get approved, but most likely not. It will not be approved. Just a heads up. Program assessments. All right, so that's starting on page 25 of the solicitation. Applicants may not use any OVW funds to conduct research. However, up to 3% of the budget may be allocated for the purpose of assessing the effectiveness of funded activities. For example, funds may be used to conduct pre- and post-testing of training recipients or for victim satisfaction surveys. In conducting such testing or surveys, grantees may not collect analyze, or disseminate any information that would disclose the identity of an individual. Pre-agreement cost approval. That is on page 26 of the solicitation. OVW generally does not allow pre-award costs. Please be aware that costs incurred prior to the start date of the award may not be charged to the project unless the recipient receives prior approval from OVW. Please see the DOJ financial guide for more information on any pre-award costs, and there is a link to the financial guide on page 26. Other submission requirements, that's also on page 26, and please review this section carefully to ensure your ability to submit your application on time. Section E, application review information. Applications will be subject to a peer review and a programmatic review. Applications will be scored based on the degree to which the application responds to each section and addresses each element in the section. Furthermore, applications will be scored based upon the quality of the response and the level of detail provided. Each element must be addressed in a section in which it is requested. Points may be deducted if the applicant does not include the information in the appropriate section, even if it is included elsewhere within the application. Each section will be reviewed as a separate document and will be scored as such. Information regarding the review and selection process begins on page 28. Section F, Federal Award Administration information. Federal award notices. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Section F, Federal Award Administration information starts on page 29 of the solicitation. I'm sorry. Federal award notices. Successful applicants will receive OVW award notifications electronically from the OJP Grants Management System, or GMS, not grants.gov. You will receive no notification you will not receive an award notification through grants.gov. You just apply through grants.gov. You will receive a notification if selected for funding through the GMS system. This award notification will be sent to the individuals listed as the authorized rep and the point of contact on the SF424. And that is key that you keep that information up to date. If something happens or someone leaves who was your point of contact or authorized rep, you probably need to get in contact with us as soon as possible. If you are granted an award and you are notified that your application was selected for funding, you will get a notice from the GMS system, and it will include instructions on accepting the award. And you will be required to log in to GMS, accept any outstanding assurances and certifications on the award that include financial points of contacts, and review, sign, and accept the award. The award acceptance process involves physical signature of the award document and terms. The award acceptance process involves physical signature of the award document and terms and conditions by the authorized rep, and the scanning of the fully executed award document to OVW. Administrative and national policy requirements. Okay, that is on page 30 of the solicitation. Violence Against Women Act non-discrimination provision. The Violence Against Women Act reauthorization of 2013 added a new civil rights provision that applies to all 2017 OVW grants. This provision prohibits OVW grantees from excluding, denying benefits to, or discriminating against any person on the basis of actual or perceived race, color, religion, national origin, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, or disability in any program or activity funded in whole or in part by OVW. Again, for more information on this, see the link on page 30. Accessibility, and that's also on page 30. Recipients of OVW funds must comply with all applicable federal civil rights laws, which, among other things, prohibit discrimination on the basis of disability and national origin. This includes taking reasonable steps to ensure that persons with limited English proficiency LEP, have meaningful access to recipients' programs and activities, and ensuring that these programs and activities are readily accessible to qualified individuals with disabilities, including deaf or hard of hearing individuals. More information on these obligations is available in the Solicitation Companion Guide, and there is a link for this guide on page 30. Applicants must allocate grant funds or other available resources to support activities that help to ensure meaningful and full access to their programs. For example, grant funds can be used to support American Sign Language interpreter services, language interpretation and translation services, or the purchase of adaptive equipment. Section G, Federal Awarding Agency Contact. That is on page 31. For assistance with the requirements of the solicitation, again, you can contact the LAV unit. You can contact us individually or at the LAV mailbox, or you can call the main OVW phone number, which is 202-307-6026, which again was on the document that I emailed you all who registered. Section H, other information, which is on page 31. There is an application checklist here on page 31. So we just want, make sure that all these items are completed if they apply to you, and that, you have all this before you upload your application. And applicants must submit a fully executed application, including all required supporting documentation. Again, OVW will not contact applicants for missing items. Additionally, if an applicant plans to submit an application under any other OVW grant program this year, please ensure that only documents pertinent to this solicitation are included with this application. OVW will not redirect documents that are inadvertently submitted with the wrong application. For example, if a rural letter is submitted with a transitional housing program application, it will not be transferred to the rural application. And we've had people submit the wrong, they were applying for maybe the rural program, they submitted the application on LAV, or vice versa, and they got kicked out. They weren't considered for funding under any program. So please be very mindful. If you're applying for multiple programs, please just make sure that you got all the right documents for each of the different grant programs. And with that, I wish you all good luck, and now we will open up to take some questions. Hi, Alicia.
Yeah, so everyone's going to be unmuted now, so go ahead and ask questions if you have any.
Hi, my name is Danita, and I'm from GBLA. And I just had a question regarding the funds that we have to allocate for travel. Is that $6,000 per year or over the course of the 3 years?
Oh, very good question. It's $6,000 over the course of the 3 years. Minimum.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Good question.
Schwaber from the State Center. Hi, Regina.
Hey, how are you doing, Lois?
I'm doing good, thank you. Question. What about an such a sign that's providing probably 40% of sexual assault services?
You're breaking up. Oh, I'm sorry, Lois. You're breaking up some.
I'm sorry. What about an agency such as mine that is providing approximately 40% of sexual assault services? Could we ask for additional funding over the $600,000?
Oh, no, unfortunately not. Of course, we welcome you want to do more sexual assault, but no, $600,000 would be the cap.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Cynthia at Legal Assistance in Chicago. I have a follow-up question to that one. If we're applying for the $600,000 without meeting the priority focus of 80%, but we do have a substantial percentage dedicated to sexual assaults over domestic violence, does that get weighted any differently in the general pool compared to a program that might be focusing exclusively on domestic violence?
I mean, I don't think it's weighted any differently. I mean, of course, we take that into consideration that you may be doing sexual assault, but unless it's really the high bar of the 80%, I mean, it doesn't hurt you. I mean, it doesn't hurt or harm you. I mean, either way. So, I can't really answer. It's just, so, I mean, you can do it, but it doesn't, but you won't get any additional, points or anything. It's just that we would look at that and consider that you are doing sexual assault. If that makes sense.
This is Marshall in Sacramento. If we don't have time to get together the partnerships that are indicated that we need to have, can we expect that there will be additional funding again in subsequent fiscal years for a similar program?
Well, there is no guarantee of funding for additional years because Congress has appropriated our funding. So I mean, we've had this grant program since around 1999, but we never know. But yes, but generally we have LAV funding every year. So yes, sir, we hope so. We hope to continue to provide some next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Nicole Sabilski. I would also like to dovetail on that question as well. If, say, a program is awarded an LAV fiscal year 17 award, will it be solvent for all 3 years? I know that's a very egregious question to ask, but given the current environment, I just wanted to ask it.
Yes, ma'am, and that is a very good question. Yes, it is. The way our funding works, like when we give an award for 3 years, or let's say we negotiate the funding scope with you, you get a 2-year award. Yes, the money for this year is appropriated to cover your funding for however many years you are awarded in 2017. Can't guarantee for people who apply next year, but yes, you will have 2 years, however many years of funding. Yes, ma'am. Good question.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Arthur Davis with Catholic Charities in Oregon. I have 2 questions. One is around trainings and participant education. This RFP seems to have less of an emphasis on those areas than some of the OVW programs. Is that correct? And is that allowable?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat? I couldn't. You were sort of going in and out. Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
Sure, and I'll try to. Is this better with the microphone?
Yes.
Great. So 2 questions. The first is that this RFP seems to have less of an emphasis on trainings and for other entities and participant education than some OVW RFPs. Is that correct, and are those allowable expenses?
Yeah, I mean, now you can provide training to your project partners or, potential project partners. They could be funded by your LAV grant or not, but they have to, somehow be a partner and assisting you in your potential LAV grant. So yes, you can do training, but our focus is the direct legal services. But yes, absolutely, because if you have pro bono attorneys, or maybe if you are a nonprofit and you partner with the legal services, you probably want to have some training with the attorney staff who might need to know about what the advocates do, and that type of thing, and learn more about the dynamics of DV, domestic violence and sexual assault, and vice versa. So yeah, absolutely, you can provide some training, but of course among your partners. But the focus is generally going to be the legal services.
And second question, our primary legal services around immigration, which provides access to that population. We both partner with a legal services agency for domestic violence and family-related law and propose to hire an attorney in that area. Is that allowable?
Oh, yes, you can partner with legal services as well. You can hire an in-house attorney. Absolutely, all allowable. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Tommy from Georgia, and I'm wondering if we can use any of the money to help clients relocate for safety purposes once we've started some legal action.
No, Tony. Probably not. And if that sort of came up as a rarity, you would contact your grant manager, and we would ask our OVW attorneys. But generally, no, we don't allow funding for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
Hi, this is Camille.
Go ahead.
This is Camille from Catholic Charities in Cleveland. I have a two-part
question. I sent the to the wrong place. Justin's house. Oh, that's helpful. And no one knows.
Okay. If you're not talking, please mute your phone if you're not talking.
Hello.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, this is Tony from Los Angeles Center for Law and Justice. I have 3 questions.
Okay.
Do we need to commit to serving a particular number of individual survivors for this grant?
No, I mean, no, you don't have to commit to serving an individual number. I don't know what's going on there. I'm sorry, Tony, I'm just getting some feedback. I'm waiting for the see. Okay, stop. Okay. So, Tony, no, you don't have to commit to any number because you really, until you probably start serving victims, sometimes you don't know what number you're going to have. So, as you write your proposal, you can say generally, we're going to serve maybe up to a certain amount, or we're going to, attempt. So, I wouldn't put a hard number in there, but no, there's no set number that you have, because it's just going to depend on many factors, on who comes through your door. I mean, it's just a lot of factors on how many clients that you serve. So if you have some inkling based on maybe if you've served victims in the past, then you might have some idea what you might serve in the future, or you might serve less or more, but again, many factors. But no, you don't have to set a hard and fast number. What's your next question?
Right. Are sexual assault cases from dating relationships considered non-interpersonal? Non-intimate?
Oh, you said relationships from dating? You mean
sexual
people who are dating?
Cases, yes.
If they're dating, yeah, no, that's considered intimate partner.
It is. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
And last question, what types of services provided by SA partner organizations are grant funded that are not legal services providers?
This is basically.
So you mean like a sexual assault program?
Yes.
Whatever their core sexual assault program, pretty much their core services would be okay, because they would be serving clients. They would advocate for them. They might go with them to court. Counseling. They might give them counseling. So yeah, I mean there are a lot. I mean just whatever. I mean if they are a rape crisis center and they do sexual assault, I mean pretty much all their services will be fine. I mean are allowable, and they're going to get. And then you just adding the legal services component on to that to provide the client with additional services.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Lisa from Center for Hope and Safety in New Jersey. We are a domestic violence agency, and we have an on-staff attorney. The on-staff attorney is supervised by an external attorney for legal supervision. So the question is, can we provide a statement of expertise, or do we need to provide an MOU?
Okay, I'm sorry. Now, what kind of program are you again? I'm sorry.
We're a domestic violence agency.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
We have many services, and one of them is legal services. We have an on-staff attorney.
Okay. So your primary mission, I mean, all the clients that you see are all victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so yes, you could do a statement of expertise. Oh, and one more thing.
We don't have to present any MOU between because our attorney is supervised by an outside agency?
No. Does your outside agency, is it the supervisor, or are they, you're saying do they need to provide a statement of expertise for the one that's supervising?
No, I'm saying do we need to provide an MOU between our agency and the agency that employs an attorney that supervises our attorney?
No, you wouldn't have to, but in your statement of expertise, you could explain the expertise of everybody and how this outside attorney will serve as a mentor. You can explain. Well, you should explain that in your statement of expertise on how your in-house attorney is being mentored by someone not at this agency, and explain that relationship and dynamic. That's it.
I have one more quick question. Can we include emergency assistance like transportation money in the budget for our clients to get to court and such? It's
very limited. If they're coming to the attorney and going through a legal proceeding, then yes. But but not for everything. So yes, for those with limited circumstances, you can. It has to be it's very limited. So yes, to meet with the attorney for legal service, for LAV funded legal services, or to make it to a court proceeding with that an LAV attorney has directed the client to attend, then yes, you can use funding for that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you. Good question.
Hi, this is Camille from Catholic Charities in Cleveland. I had 2 questions. One is most of the individuals that we serve that are victims of sexual assault, the sexual assault occurred in a different country, and then they came to the United States, and I was wondering if that scenario was allowable under the grant.
Yes, if they are a victim of sexual assault, yes. As long as they're a victim of sexual assault, it doesn't matter, and they're in this country, yes, you can serve them. That counts.
Okay, and then the other question was, we primarily in-house provide immigration legal services. Is it possible to apply for this grant just for our limited area, or should we be looking to partner with other organizations to provide other kinds of legal services?
That's sort of up to you. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine, or you can limit it to immigration legal services, because that's part of the holistic legal services site is immigration. So yes, that's really up to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Both, yes, fine. Both are fine.
Hi.
I have a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Nancy, and I'm have a question, two questions. We are a community action agency and have an on-site attorney, but can we support the salary of a legal advocate who would refer clients to other services to provide comprehensive services other than legal services, such as counseling or access to other kinds of services?
Oh, yes, ma'am. You sure can support that legal advocate, as long as the legal advocate is providing these services for, a client who's getting LAV funded legal services. Yes, you can fund the legal advocate to provide those support services. Yes.
Okay, and the other question is, I thought I heard you say charts could be single spaced.
Yes, ma'am.
Like tables, but do they still have to be 12-point font, or can they be a little bit smaller, like an 11, or in the charts, the tables only?
I mean, you know what? I've seen it all different ways. I would probably try to get as close to 12 as I can, but I know sometimes it stretches the table, but I would try to get as close to 12. If it goes to 11, I'm sure no one really will notice, but, it should be at least readable, not small print, where people have to really peer and look hard. It should be, be able to be read, in other words.
Well, yeah, but, okay. Well, thank you.
So, I would try to stick it to 12 point if you can.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, on the budget narrative, does it also have to be double-spaced, or can it be single-spaced?
It doesn't matter. No one has ever even brought that up. It doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter.
Okay, just wanted to double check.
Yes, of course. Whatever you want to do, whatever. Yes.
Okay.
Hello, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Okay, so just two questions for clarification. So for those who are applying for a project that would focus on domestic violence, does this still need to address sexual assault to some degree?
No, you're not required to address sexual assault. No, you're not required.
Okay, thank you. And then a second question is, are we allowed to submit letters of support as attachments, or no extra attachments?
No extra. No letters of support. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes?
Yeah, so just for clarification's sake, for students on college campuses, if it's acquaintance rape, that would qualify as non-intimate partner, correct?
Yeah, that would qualify, yes.
Any age limit? Is it adults like 18 up regarding providing services, or a certain age up?
For our services, it's age 11. It's age 11 up, so I mean, in that population, they would all be qualified, yeah. They would be qualified for services. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, I have a couple questions. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kathleen. I'm from Catholic Charities of the East Bay, and I was wondering if you consider sex trafficking victims as victims of sexual assault for the purposes of this grant?
Yes, we would consider sex trafficking victims, yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. And then, so would legal services giving a full range of issues like immigration, housing, family law provided to sex trafficking survivors be appropriate uses of funds?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely, all of that, yes.
Okay, perfect.
My second...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
You know what? Yeah, no. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, your second question. We were just having a little discussion. Yes, ma'am. What's your second question?
Oh, no worries. My second question is about data tracking. I wanted to know if you have a policy on how we are to capture data regarding cases, legal cases, specifically if you would want us to count clients or cases, and if you wanted children who are affected counted by case. Which is
well, no, no, Jen, we don't. Are you talking about in terms of applying for an application, or if you were an awarded grant? How are you talking about that?
I think probably both. I think in terms of quantifying sort of the impact of our services, if you'd want us to talk about if you'd want us to talk about number of clients or number of cases.
I mean, I guess that's sort of a grantee. I mean, I've seen it all ways. So a grantee can actually, I'm sorry, it's up to you as an applicant. I mean, either way is fine as long as it's clear to the person reading your, application what it is that you're showing and how you're showing it. And so, and I'm sorry, we probably want to have a go back to your question regarding sex trafficking. And so, because sometimes the sex trafficking, it could be initially sort of domestic violence. Or, I'm sorry, someone's typing. Could you mute? I'm sorry, there's someone typing. So, I guess can you call us directly, whatever state you're in, so we can get clarification on the sex trafficking? Because we probably need to ask you some follow-up questions. Can you do that?
Oh, for sure, yes.
Yes. I'm sorry, what state are you calling from?
I'm calling from California. I'm in the East Bay area.
Okay, yeah, all right. Can you call Shannon Gaskins? And so we're going to get a little bit more questions, information, so we can make sure we tell you, the right thing. So we just want to clarify and talk with you directly. Or email. Or you can email Shannon, that's fine too. But yes, can you get in contact with us so we can just go ask you a little bit more questions if we don't have time to ask you right now. Thank you.
No worries. I will definitely do that. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Can you talk just a little bit about the intimate partner sexual assault? It seems pretty cut and dry, but then one person asked about dating relationships, and then one talked about acquaintance rape, where that would be a non-intimate. Can you just give a little more guidance?
Yeah, well, I see that acquaintance, like, for instance, if it's a landlord-tenant. Like, you know the person, but you don't have a real you don't have a relationship with them.
Any kind.
I'm sorry?
No kind of relationship at all, but you just, like right. In the case of a campus, you might know the person, but you don't have any kind of...
Right, yes. If the person knows your roommate on campus and they come over and you know them, but, you don't have any type of intimate partner in their intimate relationship with them and they attack you, then, yes, that would be non-intimate partner sexual assault.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, thank you. Good question.
Hi, I have two questions.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Monica from New Jersey. I have two questions.
Okay, Monica, go.
Did I understand that the grant doesn't cover anyone under 11?
Right, no one under 11.
Okay, and then my follow-up question is because here in New Jersey we have a brand new, less than a year old sexual assault protective order law, which does cover minors under 11, and part of what are considered, we're trying to get to the 80%, but because the law is new and we don't know about number of cases, would it be advisable to do a pitch that was a little bit heavier on training just because the law is new and we're trying to increase the number of actual cases if we wanted to do training statewide to get out information on this brand new protective order law? Or is that still, because it's not definitely legal assistance, even though it's training about it, not advisable?
Now, let's say if you were doing this training with your project partner or maybe with a sexual assault coalition, but just to go out and do a training just for, anybody to come in, probably not. And so it's not that you can't do training or that you shouldn't discuss it because you're trying to get more people to know more about this particular law, but it can't be the overwhelming focus and it can't, take a lot of grant funds. You can discuss and say this is how we're going to do more outreach about, this new law. It has to be sort of limited in scope into certain, I'm trying to think of the right word. It has to be very limited in scope into who you're going to train, and you can definitely do it, but you can't just go have a statewide conference for anybody to come. It has to be to certain elements and certain professions, and someone else is going to speak.
Just want to clarify that under the VAWA reauthorization of 2013, LAV recipients cannot provide trainings to entities or persons that are not formal or informal partners. So I know LAV grantees were able to do that in the past, but that is no longer.
Yeah.
So does that mean, like, if I'm a legal services agency partnered up with the sexual assault agency, we couldn't go out and train our domestic violence response team members or SANE SART nurses because they're not formal partners on the grant?
She said that's
or informal.
Now those are informal partners under the grant. But
okay,
I mean,
so if we have a targeted audience, okay.
Yes, and I'm saying, like, you just wanted to go and, like, anybody could just show up to your training type. You know how people do a large national conferences, and that anybody can come who pays the registration fee. It can't be something like that. It has to be very targeted to formal or informal partners, and they should have some kind of impact on your program. Whether they might refer people to you or something to that effect. It has to have some connection to your LAV program project.
Hold on.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. But again, if you need more clarification, please call us because that can get a little murky. So we can go more into detail with you if you need it.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between a contractor and a consultant and project partner, and how we should list our partners? I'm just so confused about that, even though I've done this many times. Specifically, we have a clinic partner that I guess is a consultant, but are they also a project partner? How should we talk about them?
So this clinic part, well, you know what, actually, I will call in because we would ask you more like, what is this clinic person doing on your project and how are you going to incorporate them? Whereas a contractor might be someone, who, for instance, if you have a contract attorney where you go to an individual attorney and have them do a specific area of law for you that you don't have in-house or don't have a project partner for. So that's more of a contractor type thing as opposed to a project partner. So we will probably, if you can just, call whoever the grant manager for your state and have them, like, walk you through and ask you questions to clarify so you can get that, in detail because it's, like, a lot of stuff and I don't want to, go through all of it. But we can answer your question. We just probably need to ask you more questions.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
So I understand the prohibition against criminal defense work, but is it allowable to use an LAV attorney to provide counsel to someone who's a defendant in a civil protective order if they are truly the victim?
Wow. That's a good question.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Are you
like
talking
in
about
cases,
a civil case or a criminal case?
Yes, only civil.
Oh, well, civil assistance is fine. It's just criminal work that's barred.
Okay. So they could, so like if a victim, I'm sorry, so if a victim comes in and they have a protective order against them, an LAV attorney could represent them at that hearing.
Correct.
As the defendant. Okay.
Is it a criminal? Is that a criminal hearing or civil hearing?
No, it would be a civil hearing only.
Oh, okay. Oh, civil hearing.
Civil
okay.
is fine.
Yes, as long as you have determined that she is the true victim. Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Thanks. I'm planning to apply for 2 OVW grants for victims of domestic violence. The 2 grants, some of the work that we do, we could potentially put on either grant, specifically some counseling and support group. And I'm thinking about putting it on both grants because it's very unlikely that we would get both grant awards. But what if we did? Would we have the opportunity to revise our goals and objectives so that?
Yes. 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 Absolutely. And we would probably, request that you do that.
Okay. Good. So it's just that's sort of a standard process that we would go through.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Diane from California. I have a question following up on the definition of dating as intimate partner violence. If we have a client who has, say, they have a new relationship and they've been dating for a month, but they haven't had actually intimate relations, and then there's a sexual assault, would that qualify? Would we call that person an intimate partner, an intimate partner relationship? Or
yes.
is that, even though they never,
right,
even
yes.
though they never had intimate relations?
Right. They have an ongoing, they're in a relationship. They have an ongoing a relationship even though they haven't consummated it. Yes, ma'am. We consider that a dating relationship, intimate partner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good question.
This is Arthur in Oregon again. Following up on one of the previous questions, I believe the focus of the funding is on providing legal services. To what extent, and my understanding was that other services, other domestic violence related services were not allowable, but I'm a little bit confused in terms of counseling, other assistance. It's not directly legal related. To what extent is that allowed? Thank you.
The meetings are for, and Barbara's supposed to be in it.
Oh, okay. Can we mute, please? Yeah. For example, Arthur, like for instance, if you're funding a legal advocate with LAV funding who is getting legal services, LAV funded legal services from an attorney, so that advocate could refer that client who's getting LAV legal services, like refer him or her for counseling, can go to court with her. I mean, we can fund their salary to do that. The link is if they are providing these support services to the victim, the client who is getting LAV funded legal services. So we have some leeway there. It just has to connect back to the legal services. So that's sort of how that is, and we can explain, that more in depth if you want us, if you want to call Jan Cherie, she's the grant manager for Oregon, and walk through that a little bit more. But generally, that's how it is. It has to be connection to that client getting LAV funded legal services, so they can do some support services and get funded for it.
And Arthur, this is Jan Cherie. I did get your email, so I'm going to respond.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Arthur.
This is Kathleen in California again. I just have one additional question.
Yes,
I was hoping to find out if there is a special database that data for this grant will be collected in, or are we going to use the main GMS system?
Yes. Well, yes. When you get, if you get an award, what will happen is that we have you will have to do a progress report, and that data is used to generate reports to Congress. And there is a database that we actually can provide you through our technical assistance provider, where you can collect data to complete the report. So yes, once you get an award, we will let you know all this information. So yes, there is ways to collect the data and how you should and what you have to do with it and everything like that. Yes, ma'am.
Got it. And it's a separate database from the GMS system.
Well, you would have to complete your progress report in GMS, but however, there is a separate database by the contractor that we use for the reporting for the evaluation of OVW programs. And yes, they will provide you with a separate database, and because they also would do conference calls for all grantees regarding filling out the LAV progress report. So yes, yes. In other words, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen.
Hi, Regina. This is Steve with the Retreat in New York, a domestic violence agency. And which a couple questions. One is with regard to limited child care to help assure access to survivors to attend court or attorney meetings, is that, like transportation assistance, is a limited amount of child care allowable?
Yes, it's with the meeting with an attorney. Now, regarding going to court, I don't think you can do it going to court, Steve. But if you send me an email, I can probably follow just to make sure. But yes, if they are coming to meet with the attorney, then yes. I would have to check with an OVW attorney about the question regarding providing that service if they are going to court, and that's a good question. So if you could email me and remind me, I will look into that and get you a response.
Thank you. And the second question is about compensating partners who provide legal services. Does OVW have a preference in whether that partner budgeting is broken out on an estimated hourly rate kind of basis versus a single sum that covers sort of the overall direct and indirect costs over the 36 months with each partner. We want to be mindful of, we know there's a restriction on hourly rate for, contractors. So how does OVW prefer to see those kind of costs broken out?
It should be as detailed as possible. You can do it by hour, you can do it by month, but it has to be, broken. It has to be broken out in detail. However you choose to do it, it has to be very clear on, this person's getting whatever salary, however you determine that, has to be very clear to the budget people. So that's sort of up to you. You can do it hourly, monthly, however you want to do it, you can do that. And if we need more clarification, we would just come back to you, but it should be very clear on how you sort of arrived at that figure, whatever the total end result is, how you arrived at that, whether it's monthly, hourly, or weekly.
Okay, excellent. Yes, thanks so much.
Thank you.
This is Valerie at Pisco Legal Services, and I actually have a follow-up to that one. For that hourly, for that rate for partners, can it include administrative costs for those partners, or does it just have to be service costs?
It can include administrative costs. Yes.
And then I had one more question about criminal court accompaniment. Is that allowed under the grant still?
To accompany a client, just accompany? Yes, you can.
So it's not defense, but just accompany them to criminal court.
Yes, and then also possibly to, I think we've allowed attorneys to assist with victim impact statements, to assist the client with the impact statement, but yes, that's pretty much, that's the limit of the criminal work you can do on the LAV. Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
Regina, can I ask you one more question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this has to do with indirect costs, and of course we don't have, an approved cost rate. So I'm wondering, is it just a matter of putting in the de minimis 10% and telling you how we're going to spend it, or do we have to have some sort of documentation in place to be able to ask for that 10%?
It would be the development.
Yes, you can put in that 10%, that 10% cost. Oh, I'm sorry. Can somebody mute? Can somebody mute, please? Yes, you can just put in that amount and state that and explain what the cost is for. So that's all you need to do. And if you want an indirect cost rate, of course, you could just negotiate. If you wanted one with our office, you can negotiate with our office to get one. But yes, you can just add a 10% with the explanation of what it is and what generally it will be used for in your narrative.
Okay, and I don't have to have anything that supports it. I just need to say for indirect costs such as this, and then tell you how to break down what I'm going to use it for.
Yes, for that 10% if it's that 10% administrative cost, you can. But if you're doing actual indirect costs, that indirect cost, you would have to have an indirect cost rate. So that's why I was like, I would do that. You state that it's indirect cost, we're going to ask for a rate. If you say that 10% administrative cost that you can do, then it could just be the 10% administrative cost with an explanation.
When you say administrative costs, we're talking administrative salaries as opposed to something like rent or something else. We're talking like salaries.
Yes, right, because rent should be spelled out specifically. Right. If you charge them rent to the grant, it should be the percentage of the grant funding, LAB grant funding overall, to your overall, to your overall agency. So yes, the rent has to be spelled out specifically. Yes.
So that would be an eligible. I mean, if we had I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but if we are purchasing our building, would we be allowed to make a portion of a mortgage payment, or would there be that's not allowed? Okay, thank you.
No. You can't do the mortgage, but if you were renting a space, you could charge the rent for the LAV project to the grant.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay, I had a couple questions. I had a follow-up on a previous question about child sexual abuse cases. In California, abuse can extend to the victim, the mother, when there's abuse that's being inflicted upon someone under the age of 11. Is that excluded?
That client under 11 can't be a direct.
No, but if the victim is listed as the mother for the abuse that's inflicted against the child.
From the Stonewall Gallery into
I'm sorry. Someone's talking and we can't hear. If you could just mute, please. I'm sorry. Can you try your question again? I'm sorry.
Yes, in out-of-scope activities, child sexual abuse cases for children under 11. If the child who is being abused is under 11, but the action is being started on behalf of the mother as abuse against her, is that appropriate? Or is it still excluded?
That is a very good. That's a very good question. That you will. Let's say from California, you will probably need to email us that because we will need to check with our OVW attorney. Unless one of my colleagues have anything they want to add.
So the 11-year-old is the abused victim, correct?
No, she said that the adult client. Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
Well, in California, if your child is being abused, you can argue that the victim, the mother, is still the victim because of the experience of having her child abused. So you can still do a restraining order on behalf of the mother for the abuse of the child.
For the purpose of LAV, that would not be eligible.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the other question I have is about elder abuse. Is that considered under the realm of domestic violence for purposes of this grant?
Well, it could be. It could be both. It could be domestic violence, sexual. It could be anything. But you can serve elder victims, but it has to be an intimate partner focus. It can't be like the child or or someone else who's a relative who's not an intimate partner. But if it's an intimate partner abuse, then that's allowable.
Okay, and then lastly, for funding, is the service as a process service funding, is that allowed to serve the restraining orders?
Yes.
Okay, so that would assist with the victim and try, because that's a big problem here in California, is trying to get them served. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good question.
Okay.
Regina, quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Just a couple of technical questions on formatting and whatnot. In the past, I've noticed that the MOUs were restricted to 8 pages, and this solicitation did not have that restriction. Is that still the case, or can we go a little longer?
Yeah, you can go a little longer because somehow we neglected to put a page limit in this year. So there's no page limit on the MOU.
Okay, great. And then the other question is on single space. The bit with that charts can be single space. Can you put single space charts within your narrative? Like if you put data or a timetable in your chart, in your narrative, can those be single space?
Yep, that's fine. Yep.
Great.
It can
Thank
be
you.
Or double space. Yes, the chart, but the actual other narrative should be double space.
The prose, the written part, and then
the written part, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have a quick question about attachments.
Yes.
So this is Emily from Minnesota. So I know that with previous OVW grants, if the applicant entity is a nonprofit with a 501c3 status, we need to provide that documentation, but that's not on this list of attachments. Is that something that we need to provide, or should we just not worry about it, or what's
ma'am. No, it's not required. No, ma'am. Not for the LAB program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, I have another question from Sacramento.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, in the out-of-scope activities, it talks about cases involving the Child Protective System. Does that also exclude where you have CPS who sent the victim to us to get a restraining order, where there's really no connection other than the fact that they were referring them to us?
No, that's absolutely allowable, yes.
Okay.
That's allowable.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Regina.
Yeah, just because they might have.
Hi, can you hear me?
I'm sure the cat has not had any shots yet. So.
I'm sorry, someone's talking about their cat. Can you mute your phone? Hello, I heard some background information. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, this is Heather in Boston. I just wanted to clarify, so is it my understanding that what we're able to do in the budget is we can allocate funding to hire say a new attorney or hire new staff that would be allowable under like administrative costs?
If you recruiting, you mean for recruiting purposes?
Yeah.
Well, say to expand our legal services.
So, you want to hire additional staff to provide legal services? Yes, that's allowable. But you will put that if you're hiring directly to your agency, they would be in the personnel category, you have to, list who they are, how many hours and stuff. But, if you're contracting with a legal services, they would be in the consultant's contract category, but they would have to be spelled. They would have, you would have to say who they are, or job position, and, their salary and things like that. So they have to be a little bit more detailed and not just in, administrative calls. But, yes, that is an allowable expense.
Okay, and allowable expense would also be just to continue funding one FTE that's already doing this work.
Yeah, yes, as long as they're providing direct legal services to clients, yes, ma'am, or assisting those providing direct legal services, yes, absolutely.
Okay, and then the other question I had was that you mentioned that there were grants managers by state. Is there a list of all the contact information that I would find if I had a follow-up question?
Did you register through our mailbox?
I did, but I may have registered a little bit late.
Oh, because I sent the email out, but
I didn't receive any notification of that one after I registered.
Okay. Well, can you just email me? My name is Regina, REGINA .Madison, MADISON, Regina.Madison @USDOJ.gov, and I will forward you the email with the attached solicitation and list of the grant managers. So it's Regina.Madison @USDOJ.gov.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Regina.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I just wanted to know if you could clarify more on the holistic services and how you mentioned how they would have to provide direct legal support, but in the RFP it says counseling, support groups, and shelters also acceptable. Could you elaborate a little bit more?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to. You said acceptable in terms of.
Well, if we would be able to do a 1 FT for our counselor.
And then, so your counselor would be doing providing counseling service. I'm sorry, someone's playing music. Can we? Thank you.
I don't know how you put it there.
I'm sorry. Yeah, if you hear some background conversations, can you mute your phone, please, so other people can ask their questions? Thank you. So, for instance, you probably could, do the salary, of a counselor, but they would be restricted to, if it's an LAV, this is a client getting LAV legal services, you can provide those support services, yes.
So directly links, if our legal advocate made a referral to the counselor, that would be acceptable.
I'll definitely let them.
Yes, but you probably can, unless your LAV grant, if the LAV grant is not 100%, of your agency, then you can probably pay a portion of the counselor's time, but, not the entire amount. Whatever percentage they are, in terms of how many clients that they may get referred to them within in-house, then you can do a portion, but probably not all.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Good question.
Hi. Regina, this is Merle Weiner in Oregon. I have a question. Hello. I have a question about our objectives. If we are going to be seeking funding for a partial position, because that position we have funding for the other part of that position, do we say that attorney would be serving the total number that a 1.0 full-time equivalent attorney would be serving, or do we cut that number in half, say, if we're seeking 0.5 funding?
Well, if that person, whatever percentage of that time is dedicated to LAV grant, is that what you need to focus on in your application and should talk about. However, you can mention, for instance, yes, we're funding this attorney, 0.25%, but, however, this attorney does provide legal services with other funding. There's nothing wrong with this to clarify, but, you wouldn't go on and on, but you can just clarify and just focus on how this attorney is going to provide direct legal, LAV funded legal services, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I have another question, piggybacking off of something another woman just asked. We're planning on providing support group and counseling, but I think what I heard you just say is the only clients that would be eligible for that are ones that are also seeking legal services?
Well, yes, it's like, I mean, for instance, we can't just fund someone to do support groups for anybody in the agency. I mean, now if you fund an advocate who refers to someone to your support group in your agency, that's fine. We probably can't fund anything with the support group. You're just referring because you have that service within your agency. So it has to be some kind of connection to your LAV grant. So depending on what that connection is, you have to show it clearly. It may be allowable, but, just to say, we offer, if you are a shelter and you have a support group, anybody in the shelter, we can't, support that with LAV funding totally. But, if you have an advocate who is providing intake or support services to an LAV, a client getting LAV funding services, you can support part of that advocate's salary.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
That helps. Thank you very much.
Okay. But call us if you have more questions about that.
One more quick question about the submission. You said no additional documentation, but are you at all interested in seeing the resumes? Like, would the resumes of people be advisable to attach to the certification letter, or should we just not send them?
No, you should not. You should not send them, because in the who will implement section of your proposal, you should talk about their expertise, including, just their expertise.
They have that in the who will implement. Yeah. So just no resumes are necessary.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Regina. This is Steve with the retreat with a quick question about making sure we're adhering to the requirement to list all headings and subheadings. Just a quick question on, for some of the longer subheadings, like the enumerated question number 2 under what will be done on page 11 of the RFP, it's several sentences long. Can we abbreviate if we're able to capture the essence of the subsection of the subheading?
I'm sorry, no, you mean abbreviate the subheading?
Yeah, can we abbreviate the subheading?
Well, I probably would. I would just, you would put, like, for instance, purpose of application, and you could answer all those questions from 1 through 9, and that's all under one subheading, no matter how many pages that goes. And then you get to the next subheading of what will be done, talk about everything and what will be done, and then do the next subheading. And then I don't know if that was your question, or you can clarify. We can answer it.
I don't think that's the question. I think it's, do we have to spell out all those questions, because that will take up almost our whole 2 pages.
No. Oh, I see you're saying, the different questions underneath each section. No, you have to just make sure you cover all that information in there. You don't have to, like, put page number 1, number 2, number 3, but all of that information in purpose of application 1 through 9 should be discussed. Should be discussed in that section.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thanks.
I don't know. Okay, well, you don't have any more questions. You have all our contact information, and if you don't, again, you can send me an email, regina.madison@usdoj.gov, and I will forward you the email that I sent to all the other participants with information on the pertinent numbers for our office and for the LAV unit. So, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call or send us. Well, I'm Regina Madison. I prefer email, so if you can send me an email, that would be great if you have any questions. And we just wish you good luck. And, again, if you have any questions, please contact us, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.